Hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue podcast with a retro review for One Missed Call. This is a film from 2008. So I've been in a kick of watching a lot of these old movies from the 2000s, specifically some remakes of horror or some adaptations of horror. Really interesting stuff, or at least for the most part. This one was all right. This film is rated PG-13 with a runtime of an hour and 27 minutes, available to watch on Max. Also, the Rotten Tomato score for this one's weird because there is no Rotten Tomato score for the critics as of the recording of this video, but the audience does have a 29%. And that's pretty spot on, really. This movie was directed by Eric Valette, written by Andrews Clavin, and I believe it was an adaptation from a film of the same name. So let's get into it. In this film, when Beth witnesses the deaths of two friends, she knows there is more at work than just a tragic coincidence. Days before they die, both victims hear their terrifying final moments on cell phones. Though the police think Beth is crazy, Detective Jack Andrews believes her. Together, they pair up to unravel the mystery behind the horrifying messages before their own phone numbers come up. This film stars Shannon Sussman as Beth, who is I love Shannon's performance in a lot of stuff, including A Knight's Tale. So this is one of the reasons I watched this film. We also have Edward Burns as Jack, the police officer, Ana Claudia Talacon as Taylor, who is one of Beth's friends, Ray Wise as Ted Summers, and then also we have Megan Good is billed here in this film, but I feel that's kind of misleading. I feel like that was kind of a grab of the name, because she's in this film. She's not in the film after her name is in the credits, which is really weird. So I mean, this is an old movie. If you probably have already seen it, so I will say, One Missed Call presents an interesting premise that unfortunately falls short to its potential, leaving the audience longing for just more, a more cohesive experience. While the concept holds promise, the film just becomes bogged down by its own over reliance on the shocks and the subpar CGI and just overall inconsistent logic. However, I think there is something redeeming in the final sequence of the film, as it showcases some really interesting practical effects and just delivering overall a really cool sequence. Shannon Sossaman's performance and charisma, they add a much needed touch, and is the reason that I kind of finished watching this film. So yeah, us talk about it. I think the premise is really interesting. This whole voicemail kind of foretelling you the recipient's death. It feels a lot like Final Destination type of stuff, but I think in a different twist, right? But this movie just kind of fails to explore that idea fully. Instead, what it does is just it gives you a bunch of deaths up front and some, like, jump scares and gruesome deaths, relying on that shock value. Also, unfortunately, like some of the CGI they were using at the moment, like just like this shocking imagery and other stuff that they added in post, like CGI, it hasn't aged very well, and that just really resulted in a very hollow experience overall. So it's really weird that they chose to spend so much time on those things when we can see that they can do better, and instead of exploring like how to stop this thing or exploring some of the trauma, I don't know, I feel like there was some interesting stuff there, but every time we got to some of those scenes of like shock and awe, it was like very abrupt, and it also felt like it was all uh really just towards the beginning of the film, and then we get like this other, like it turns into a completely different movie while Beth and this cop try to figure everything out, and then overall kind of comes back. So it's just kind of all over the place. This film stumbles due to its illogical plot elements and inconsistent application of its own logic. The story, as it presents some of these intriguing ideas, just fails to provide satisfactory explanations or even a solid foundation for like its supernatural occurrences. The film expects to audience to just fully suspend disbelief of things that they have just been told in the film. There's also this like subplot line of like an exorcism show that wants to document one of the stuff that's happening with Taylor, which feels out of nowhere. Like it really felt like it was just there to pad the runtime, um, which is nuts. Like the sequence itself is kind of cool, but the way we got there was just weird, and it didn't make sense. They introduced characters like in the middle of the film that we hadn't even had any investment in, and then they're gone like very suddenly. um, but I will say, like I said, the final sequence in this big hospital, I think has some redeeming qualities. There's some cool stuff. Like there's this. To me, it looked like a practical effect because it didn't look bad, like bad CGI. Um, as Beth kind of figures everything out that's going on, or at least we think so. That was the other thing. Like as we're figuring things out, we like I looked at the time and there was still like 15 minutes left in the film when it felt like we had to come to a very satisfying conclusion. So I knew they were gonna go overboard and unfortunately kind of mess things up. Also, another thing that just kind of kept me watching was, like I said, I love Shannon Sossamon's performance. I think she just brings a really interesting energy into the film, and her charisma just I really just made me kind of keep watching the film to figure out what happened to her character, and this makes up for some of the shortcomings. Um, Also, just as a brief aside, Alex Winter from Modern Family, she's in this film in a really weird role, but it was kind of fun to see just like an early role for this character that ended up being a sitcom for like almost a decade. So yeah, overall, there's probably better movies out there you can watch. Like if you're a big fan of Shannon Sossaman, like I am, you probably want to check this one out. If you like the original version, maybe just watch that instead because I don't think they improved upon it here with the American version. So yeah, there's so many films like this that came out at that time that I'm just kind of going through and seeing which are the good ones, which are the bad ones. So we'll kind of keep talking about all that stuff in the channel. As always, thanks for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.